as it gets wild because that's our personality. The people who show up and want to perform, they want to be boisterous, they want to be flamboyant, and we just figure out ways to allow that to happen. In ways that are tasteful, in ways that make the community proud of who we are, and put us in a place where they feel like we represent them. And of course, we always want to be act in ways where we want to represent ourselves. But past that, we incorporate all parts of our lives. I've been a big component of not separating out my academic life from my, personal cultural life. Just wanting to make sure that all the things that I learned in the conservatory and, in my degree programs, the tools to analyze music, to create new music, to adapt things, to whatever the situation is, and then turn that into something that, is worth working on, is worth presenting, and hopefully is moving the conversation forward about, who we are collectively and who we are individually.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Everything Band, a podcast that features conversations with composers, conductors, and performers of music for winds and percussion. My name is Mark Connor. I'm a composer and educator, and each week I have the great fortune to speak with and share the stories and wisdom of musicians and leaders in the band community. I'd like to acknowledge Vandercook College of Music for sponsoring this episode. With a world-class faculty, a location just minutes from downtown Chicago, and an intensive summers-only master's program, it's no wonder Vandercook College of Music has graduates teaching music in all 50 states, 21 countries, and 6 continents. Make next summer your most inspiring summer yet by pursuing a master's in music education at Vandercook College of Music. And for the next generation of music educators, Vandercook offers an exceptional, comprehensive 4-year Bachelor of Music Education program. Vandercook admissions information is available at www.vandercook.edu. Before we begin, I'd like to thank all of you for listening. I appreciate your time, and I hope that you are finding value from these interviews. I rely on word of mouth and social media to bring the show to new listeners. If you think you know 1 or 2 people who might find these interviews useful, please let them know about it. You can also help by following me and sharing posts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Remember, help students live up to the best that is in them through music. Now, on to the episode, and this week's guest, Michael Nickens. Hi, Mike.
How's it going, Mark? Great to be here.
Thanks for joining me. So, Mike, I just mentioned that I'm really excited to speak with you. This is, I heard you on another podcast a few years ago, and ever since then, I've been sort of thinking about putting you on this show. And so I was wondering if you could introduce yourself for my listeners who may not know who you are.
Sure. I really appreciate being here, Mark. I'm Michael Nickens. I have a DMA in tuba performance from the University of Michigan, but my true love is being around the community and athletic events specifically, and putting on performances, multidisciplinary performances that are musical and have choreography and all sorts of fun theatrical aspects and visual aspects. We most easily call that marching band, but I think there are many times that we've just kind of pushed beyond the simple idea of what a marching band or a pep band is. And we're moving in a direction where we're trying to really celebrate American culture and the creativity of the individual, and how that has a strong effect on the collective, and everyone grows, like I said, as individuals and as a community. So we have this band at George Mason University called the Green Machine, and the Green Machine performs at all the basketball games, men's and women's, and that's sort of how we got our start. But these days we are performing all around the community, all around the DC area, and to wherever else we get pulled to, all sorts of community events, university ceremonies, just parties, whatever we can kind of find our way in. The band sort of morphs into whatever kind of band it needs to be for each gig. Always with that, ground zero is always going to be basketball for us, but the performances just sort of turn themselves into whatever they need to be based on who's asking. So instead of just the schedule of, the 40 home basketball games, we're performing around 110 times a year, and have found our way into the competitive realms of Winter Guard International with our drumline and our color guard, into the ceremonial life of the city of Fairfax and the university with our ceremonial corps. We had a fife and drum corps and a Civil War era brass band. And then, of course, our pep band gets repurposed to be all sorts of different types of ensembles based on, whatever the activity is that we've been asked for the day. And so I'm the director of all that.
Mike, that's incredible. Sorry to laugh as you listen. I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So, I usually at this point I would ask you, like, how'd you get your start in music? We'll come back to all that. I want to talk a little bit more about the Green Machine ensembles that you're mentioning. And there are a couple things in there that really jump out at me. And one is you mentioned that you morph into all these different things as needed. Do you have any thoughts about how you do that, and maybe some tips for someone who might be looking to set up that kind of flexibility in their ensemble?
The number one key is understanding the elements of the music, just finding the common denominator that can be applied across the board. So, as always, we're trying to put together performances that have the best quality playing, have the strongest in terms of the construction of the music, and then just trying to do our best to be savvy to understand the personalities of the people who we're serving. Also in figuring out ways that, we can find deep within ourselves the way that we can express things that we're proud of. You're proud to be yourself. If you've found a way to connect with that, that inspires people, especially if they can see themselves in you, or they can see going through the same struggles. So that's really, in living in that sort of realm where we're trying to make a better life, make a better planet, make a better universe through performing arts, is like that's the beginning, that's the basis, and then just over time figuring out, making a commitment to, whenever someone asks, "Can you do this?" figuring out how to say yes, and it's not always going to be a yes that is going to be exactly what they're asking for, but if you can get a great dialogue going of how to meet in the middle, or how to convince them that they can be very excited about something that, a lot of times people that asking aren't even really truly understanding what they're asking for. So just, obviously that comes down to each connection you make with, your individual relationships. But then it's, when it comes to leading young people, at no point am I looking at the bands that I'm leading and not remembering that this is a youth group. And when people are asking for connections to young people who are, trying to grow into themselves, trying to figure out who they are and what kinds of things they're going to bring to the future, people get very excited to see young people engaged, excited, and achieving at a high level. So in some respects, you might find that as long as it has that energy, you could almost put anything out there. And as long as it's done with care and love, it will find its way out and be accepted, because people are just so excited to see anybody doing good and doing good for themselves and doing good for everyone else. And I haven't even mentioned what songs we're picking yet. You know what I'm saying? It's just this very, you put your core beliefs and your core values at the center of everything. And to me, that leads to, then I need to pick songs for a thing. And it's like, well, what songs do people love? What can I do to get people involved? You thought you were going to be an audience member. You didn't realize that we're going to have everyone in the audience become a large choir, and we're all going to sing together. We're all going to dance together, So, and that's a certain type of gig, because there are other kinds of gigs where we expect you to sit quietly, and we're going to present this thing to you, and don't respond until the end, and maybe there'll be a chance to clap. And like I said, you just being savvy on the different situations, and knowing that there are no two gigs that are the same. And even you could even do the same gig twice, and it'll be a little bit different because of some sort of, who knows what, different people involved, or you did it last time and everyone remembers that, so now it's time to do something new. But just trying to always bring a freshness to it, and then, like I said, just bringing a caring, loving approach to it, and it will be accepted universally.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I don't know if we didn't really talk about what the Green Machine, the basketball band, is and why it has that moniker and your persona with that band. I mean, these are all things that maybe people haven't seen. And if you haven't seen the YouTube videos of the Green Machine, you need to go check them out right now, unless you're driving. Don't do it now.
We got plenty, yeah. If you get on YouTube or Facebook and just look up the George Mason Band, not only, obviously George Mason has more bands than the Green Machine. We have our Wind Symphony, our symphonic band, our jazz band. But for the most part, the videos that will come up will be either fan videos that, people have taken of us performing. And then we also have our own video collection that you can just look at, a collection, of us performing, or, some behind the scenes videos or documentaries of some of our trips. And there's a lot to choose from. Yeah,
no question. So, Mike, can you talk about the Doc Nicks persona? Oh, excuse me. Can you talk about the Doc Nicks persona?
Sure. The basis of that, the very beginning of that, just came from a childhood friend of mine who has a way about reducing everybody's name to one syllable. So all of our friends, and my last name is Nickens, and so early on, probably in high school, I just became Nicks. And so that spread throughout my circle of friends. And that was just something that, the right kind of nickname that's given to you with the right, just the right idea, and you feel good when you have the right kind of nickname. So that has stuck with me through my life. And then when I got the doctorate, I was thinking about, even at the time, putting together like a stage name for my performing, as I was getting involved in a lot of hip hop shows and funk shows. Having a stage name is just kind of a fun way to get people to remember you and engage with you, and a way of kind of branding yourself. So the stage name became, as the doctorate came into place, I became Doc Nicks, and I also enjoy being Doc. My grandfather was a physician, and everyone called him Doc. And it was just a way I could honor him and feel connected to him as people started calling me Doc as well. So it's just kind of putting all that together. And so the name Doc Nicks actually predates my connection with George Mason University. I was doing some performing with my friends, around bars and arts festivals and things like that. And then so then I get the George Mason band, the George Mason basketball team, men's basketball team in 2006, went to the Final Four, and there was a lot of really exciting energy around building up the university in terms of, just the identity and the branding and school spirit, and trying to really capture all the excitement that was going on with that. And so at the time, the Dean of Admissions, Andrew Flagel, got really excited about the idea of doing more with the pep band. There was already a student-run pep band. In fact, Mason has had some form of pep band even going back to the 60s, but it was always sort of a student initiative, and they were doing everything they could do to lead themselves through. But the idea was, let's put a faculty member in charge with, just a different level of expertise, and let's put some real, do our best to put some real funding behind it. And let's see where it goes, and let's see if we can continue the energy that came to the university because of the Final Four appearance. So that summer, they put the job together, and I applied for it and got it. And as we were sort of making plans about just what this thing was going to be, I remember I was watching a couple things that came together. One of them was the movie Drumline, and it was the bad guy band director, like the villain band director. And he had this amazing purple pinstripe suit on at the game, or at the performance. And I don't know, it just seemed fun to me to do that. And there was a MTV show called Flavor of Love, and I saw an episode where Flavor Flav's doing an interview with just this bright colored, beautiful suit that just, you couldn't help but be drawn in looking at this thing. It was just audacious is a good word. And I remembered back to being a drum major in high school. I went to West Potomac High School here in Alexandria, not too far from George Mason's campus. And I remember what I could do with the crowd because I was in uniform and in front of them and kind of given permission to be the leader of the moment, whether it be a pep song or whether it be halftime. And I had a lot of friends. Like my community is like, even though DC is a big place, all of us that were in high school had been together since kindergarten. There was just a huge group of us that knew each other just our whole lives up to that point. So it was really easy to connect with everybody just because everyone knew each other and we're all friends. And cheering for each other was a fun thing to do. So I got to get a taste of that in high school. And, just even navigating around the football game, if you have a band uniform on, a security guard will open a gate for you where they wouldn't for someone else. And they just saw your uniform as permission, as your, it's like, this is proof that you've been ordained by somebody as part of the act, So kind of putting all that together and, watching college basketball my whole life and seeing how mascots and cheerleaders interact with the television cameras and the crowds, I thought it would be a whole lot more fun for me and more effective if I could kind of combine a whole bunch of ideas. So like I always talk about taking the mascot and a cheerleader and a drum major and mixing them all together. And that's sort of what I do at a game. And that's my goal, to do more than just start the song off, but really make the performance into something that is infectious and try to give everyone permission to participate and sing and clap and dance. And even in my interview, I remember saying, if I do this correctly, not only will the band become part of the team, but I'll be able to make the entire crowd part of the band. So we'll all be the team. Everyone in the building will be part of the team. And we can do that through chanting and singing and all the things that you would hope to happen, in a unified fan base in a stadium. And the suits, I bought a bunch of suits that were school colors. I didn't think that a military style uniform would be the direction I wanted to go in for what we were going to be doing inside the basketball arena. The band's not wearing, traditional military looking band uniforms. We just wear, jerseys, basketball jerseys to make, like I said, we're the team, so we have our own basketball jerseys. And then, just trying to put all the flash in we can with the school colors and branding the experience as a George Mason product and the George Mason tradition. And so my suits reflect that. And then I just, we keep going shopping and finding really fun suits that are green or gold or white. I even have a couple that are black. And those are sort of the colors in the logo, and the green and gold are what we put forth mostly, but obviously the white and black mixed in very well. And then I just try to make it look like I'm having as much fun as I could possibly have, which I am actually, and hopefully encourage everyone to sort of look at that. And then I love it when other fans start doing the same thing. They start coming in their own costumes, the students especially. Or they painting their face a certain kind of way, or they all get unified. And even though they're just a bunch of students, they've all come dressed a certain kind of way together. And so it's a way that I can help, guide the ideas of how to act in that moment. And then, it's kind of grown beyond that. We have there's a couple of bobbleheads that have been made in my image and a garden gnome. Plush toys and things like that. And I love going around the university and seeing people have those on their desks in their office, especially if I need help. And I'm walking into some place that I don't think I know anybody. And I walk in and I see a Doc Nix bobblehead and I'm like, okay, good. I'm going to get some help here. So yeah, just a chance for me to get permission to interact with the crowd and interact with the whole, rolling out of what a basketball game can be. And, our Eagle Bank Arena holds 10,000 people. And, there've been many, many, many times that we've been able to sell it out. And so that's a lot of eyes and a lot of ears and a lot of hearts that we can unify. Yeah,
absolutely. Mike, it's such a tremendous thing. There's so many things I want to talk about here. All you have to do, anyone who's listening, just look up Doc Nix and go to the images tab on Google, and you'll see all the suits. You didn't mention the Sceptre. Where did the Sceptre come from?
That was early on. I was just literally out shopping, trying to find whatever I could to make my uniform whatever it's going to be. And then at just like a a Halloween store, I saw that Sceptre and just sort of, caught my attention because it was like, again, the fun is one of the main ingredients. And I was going to be wearing, a flashy suit, and a cane is just something that goes nicely with that. However, it also works very well like a drum major mace. So it's just my chance to sort of mix together these different ideas and kind of make, one thing become another thing. And I like, again, back to those kind of common denominators that I can apply in different ways. And so this thing could act as both my sort of way that I can literally lead the music, but then the sort of status that comes with a flashy cane, or maybe there's even a way that it's sort of a source of power. No matter what suit I'm wearing, I'll always have the cane with me. It's the one thing that's not a variable. Sunglasses and dress shoes and the suit, all of those change out, but the cane is the same every performance. So it's possible that all my power comes from this thing.
Man, it's terrific. There's such great pictures. I love your white floor length suit, the white one with that long jacket.
The white one with the long jacket, but the fun part is I take the jacket off and the vest is as long as the coat is.
That's awesome.
So much fun.
And so obviously this creates a lot of energy and it creates a lot of buy-in from your students. And so this must really help with the band. What about sort of, as I watched videos, I noticed that you have singers and you have violin players, and I've seen just about everything in your band. How about that aspect of it?
It really just started because there was a violist that wanted to join. When we first put it together, I didn't really know one way or the other what I was going to do with instrumentation. What I'd seen standard was we basically take your standard ideas of instruments in the marching band and we bring them inside. Some people bring a drum line, others do a drum set. They were already doing drum sets, so when I got there, so it was easy to continue that. And then before long, though, there was a violist who wanted to join, and at first it was just kind of like I didn't really I didn't know what to think. Just he wants to join, and I didn't react one way or the other. One thing I knew for sure was that our arrangements did not have viola parts. But he was a guy who could come in and just read off of, a flute part or something like that and figure out what he was going to play on his own. But then really quickly, the band kind of made the jump. We don't play almost anything that wasn't arranged by somebody in the organization. So there's a bunch that I've arranged. We have a staff arranger, Jeremy Freer, who's done a ton of work for the organization. And then student after student after student who've gotten ideas. And then we just coach them the best we can, figure out how to use the notation software, figure out how to orchestrate, figure out some strategies of what do you do when you have all of these instruments? The scores by now are so intensely complicated because of all the instruments. What do you do when you have that many different types of instruments? And figuring out how, what pairs with what are some great doublings, how to make a great full ensemble sound. So we coach them all the way through that. So once you kind of become aware that you're in charge of the creative process, of course we can have string players, and there's some, couple different strategies we use for working them in, doubling, the mid voices with the mid voices and the high voices with the high voices. Also sort of taking more of an organ approach where we take the string section and we put them in unison and octaves with each other, so that their sound can be more powerful. We also amplify them. So for those of them that come with a pickup, we figure out ways, a mixing board. We have actually multiple mixers that because by now we have the rhythm section and the vocalists and the string players and mixing all that together. So in a live setting, so there's lots of different ways that we can apply, writing to those instruments. And I remember early on my marching band arrangements of Earth, Wind and Fire songs and all of the, the time I spent transcribing string parts for woodwinds, and then how much fun it was to put the string parts back in the strings and have that sound as we play. And then the vocalist, same story, just Christine Padua was my first one. She just kind of asked, could she do it? and we found a song that would work, and she sounded great. And so before you knew it, we had a bunch of arrangements that were just for her. They were, the majority of the book at that time was what you'd expect to hear from a pep band, instrumental arrangements of things. And then you figure out how to sort of take the melody out of the trumpets and out of the upper instruments or whatever the situation is, and leave room for the vocalist, bring a mic and run it through the system. And it works great. The crowd got excited, and it was fun to do. It felt new and fresh, and we hadn't seen a bunch of bands doing that. It wasn't necessarily because we were trying to innovate for innovation's sake. We were really just trying to include someone who wanted to be involved. And so that became the thing that has guided us throughout. So, it started with a single viola player. I now have lead singers and backup singers. I have rappers. I've had DJs. I've had electric harp. I've had contrabassoon, bagpipes, a guitar, mandolin, ukulele. So it's really just people wanting to be part of the group. And then we work hard to make sure we know how to feature them, how to include them, make sure that their parts are satisfying to play, have an impact on the group. So it's worth having them there, and people notice not just visually, but orally that these instruments are there, and then just taking the group in all the directions we can, because, we've made that decision to put a steel pan player, bebop steel pan player. Victor Provost played with us on one of our Madness performances, the big pep rally at the beginning of the year. And I was able to feature improvised steel pan with harp accompaniment as a basketball pep band, and it's just, so you just keep exploring, and you keep finding that anything you want to be possible is, but you have to work hard to make sure you get there.
Yeah, no. And that's one thing you notice when you watch the videos, and you mentioned it, is that you have all kinds of rock and roll and hip hop, and you have everything kind of going on, hodgepodge in there.
Want to make sure that everyone, if we go to a big diverse crowd, then get as many people to see what they want to see and hear what they want to hear. And then all the things that they didn't know they want to hear as well.
So, Michael, I'm just going to change gears just for a moment, because in the past, over the course of the 80 episodes I've done, I had Michael O'Connor, who is an expert on Civil War band music, actually pre-Civil War music. Yeah, he runs the Easton Concert Band. It's a Civil War reenactment brass band in Pennsylvania in the Lehigh Valley.
Okay.
And I also had Francis Franke, who's a trumpet player in the Old Guard, Fife and Drum Corps.
Yeah, we have a great connection with them. Shane Nickens is our main drum instructor, and we have alums in that group. Mark Petrinko is a bugler in the Old Guard, and he's one of the drum majors.
I kind of want to talk about this, and I know everyone loves the Green Machine. That's what they know you for, but I'm just fascinated by you starting a Fife and Drum Corps and a Civil War brass band.
So a couple ways to look at that. One of them is, as I'm talking, I can talk all day about how we try to adapt, the big monster pep band for any type of performance. But every now and then there's just something that, it's just not the right thing. It's just not the right character of performance, and there's just another kind of special thing we can do to make the event feel enhanced in the right kind of way. I went to an inauguration at American University for their president. This must have been 10 or 12 years ago now, and there was a bagpipe corps. The pipes and drums came, and they led the platform party to the platform. We had an orchestra. I was there because I was playing in the orchestra, but this pipe corps came in, and I just fell in love with it as soon as I saw it. And it was, it had been a while. I'd seen that kind of thing before, but it at that moment, now that I had the job of putting together, different types of ceremony music for the university, and I saw that, and it was just obvious. I was like, Mason needs something like this. However, instead of pipes and kilts, we're going to go three-cornered hat and fifes. And with being the George Mason Patriots, and the time period which was when George Mason lived, it just seemed like an obvious thing to try to make happen at the university. So I shopped the idea around to everyone I could, and it took it really caught when at the time the chief of staff, Colonel Tom Hennessy, when he understood what I was trying to accomplish, he went to the local American Legion, got a bunch of his friends together, and they donated all the drums. So we were able to get custom drums made by Cooperman because of this donation from the gentleman at the American Legion. And we're going to honor. All the drums are going to be named. So every individual who donated is going to get to name a drum for whoever they want. So it's going to be a great connection to our veterans in the area, to the connection to the American Legion, and of course the people who are involved. And then this is Virginia. I'm 30 minutes away from Mount Vernon and Gunston Hall, and a couple hours away from Colonial Williamsburg. And then talking about the Civil War brass. I mean, the historical days in the city of Fairfax, but also all around Manassas and just Northern Virginia has a long history of this historical reenactment or living history or all the different ways that gets expressed. But on top of that, there's all of this repertoire that just sort of doesn't get touched. It's like somehow is not in the academy. And George Mason University does a great job of responding to the community that's around it. And so it was, in my opinion, if I didn't do it, somebody else would have. It's inevitable that at some point we take this amazing heritage, all this repertoire seriously, dig it up, and bring it in and make sure students get a chance to experience it. But it's been easy to recruit because a lot of these students, for instance, the fifers, all have been in fife corps before they came to the university in their communities. So I'm not even having to like start them off. I mean, there's some that start off, but a lot of them have already done it. And then, like I said, the connection with the old guard, there's a chance for a career as a fifer or as a rudimental drummer, and we can have the pipeline at Mason, leading to that. And of course with the brass, I mean, the amazing arrangements of so much Americana through these traditional songs. I mean, the arrangements can be quite difficult. And so it's something for my lead cornetists to have to really dig their teeth in on some variations on whatever type of American song, and have to really work hard, get a chance to play some E flat and get that under their fingers, get the chops going, and then yet another chance to take the music. We do plenty in the concert hall and work very hard to try to draw people to the concert hall. But at some point, you just got to walk out to where the crowd already is and give them and make it fit to what's going on. So if everybody's going to be outside, hanging around a historical building and, looking at artifacts and different products that artisans have made, and then the music is an obvious thing to add to it. So now we got students who are interested in that, and the university can provide that for the community.
Yeah, I've heard you use that word, I don't know, half a dozen times, the idea of community and serving your listeners and serving your audience. I think that's really a wonderful thing, and it just sort of drips from everything you do.
One of my great mentors, Bill Reeder, was the dean when I showed up here. He's the dean of the College of Visual and Performing Arts. And, put the idea in my head that the ensemble doesn't end with the people who are directly participating, but everyone that's in the room is the ensemble. And sometimes that's in a very direct way. Like I said before, I'm just getting them to sing along and be part of the experience. But, if I'm not taking into account what it takes to get the funds in place, all the times that, the arena is not available for rehearsal and I got to run out to a local high school or community center. And so just the practicalities of just even running the ensembles. But then in a larger sense, this is an honest expression of who we are as people, and it belongs to everybody. And I want everyone to feel that way. And so there's all sorts of different ways to make that a reality. And, it's a great way to make friends. And when the time comes that I put the call out where, we don't have what it's going to take to get to this tournament, or I need to buy a new instrument, people just are always there for us, because we've done our best to make genuine friendships and, make sure that everyone feels like they have ownership and can see the results of, things that they're interested in, the work that they put in. So we just keep that going in all directions the best we can.
It's the field of dreams concept. If you build it, they will come.
That's the truth.
I'm in a new job now, and I'm at a small school, really tiny day school. I've got just maybe 30 kids total. And, I'm finding that just by being enthusiastic, just by putting things out there and acting in a professional way and being part of the community, that I'm starting to get donations that are coming back to me. And it was the same thing when I taught high school. If you build it, things will come to you. If you're present and you're there for the community, then the community will come back to you.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It's such a powerful, powerful thing. And if you do it right, you're not really working hard.
Even the hardest work doesn't have that same kind of feel when it's, an act of joy and an act of love. Right. And there's a different kind of exhaustion that is so satisfied. And, you survive this challenge that you put upon yourself, or that sometimes it appears and it gets put upon you. But it's like, go in with the right mindset, the right attitude, and you come out on the other side, proving to yourself that you've made good choices and proud of who you are. And then you do that for yourself. People watch you do that. They start to figure out how they can do that for themselves. And that kind of leadership no matter what, the communities around us will always need that. Everyone will always need to be reminded the next day is going to come and we're going to work hard again. And, the next day is going to come. We might rest today, but we're going to work hard the next day. But again, figuring out things that are very worthwhile and that can take so many different kinds of forms.
I never asked you about your background. I never asked you how you got started as a tuba player and growing up. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It really started going to my Aunt Noni's house, who had a piano, and I loved to sit at the piano and, at the youngest point, it's just bang around and make sound. And then, I have an older sister who, always a couple steps ahead of me. So she would learn little songs, and then I'd either figure them out by ear or she would teach me. And then at some point, notation got introduced to that. And, you could learn to play something by looking at these little symbols on a piece of paper. And, that was the beginning. That was the real beginning. And then of course I had teachers who, always had, my first grade teacher, Miss Binder, had a piano in the room, and so she'd sing and play, and that was part of the day. Even outside of we had a music teacher in the elementary school, but we also had this piano in the classroom. So you get used to seeing that. You get used to seeing people perform and being invited to participate. Also, Noni would take us to church on Sundays, and she sang in the choir, so we would, even though we weren't part of the choir, we would sit up there with the choir, watch the organist do her thing. And so there was just performing going on around us all the time. And then you get handed a recorder in third grade. And so that's a chance to actually have some success at an instrument with some instruction in a group setting. So the transition from music class with recorders to band was obvious and an easy transition. At the same time, I continued also singing in choir, elementary school, I sang in choir. I didn't do much in middle school, but that then came back into my life in high school and actually was a major part. My choir experience in high school was some of my favorite music making that I've ever done. I always look back on it fondly. But then, the band, my Mr. Hall was my band director in fifth grade, and he put a tuba in my hand for the first time, and I just fell in love with the thing. And it's just big and a lot gets your attention, and then there's the idea of conquering it, I'm bringing down a brontosaurus or something like that, and everyone gets to eat now. and you get some kid who walks in the room and in fifth grade and says, "I want to play the tuba." And that's, every elementary school band's dream, that they don't have to talk some kid into it, but a kid wants to do it. And then I was bigger, I was a big, taller kid, and I could physically handle it. So that also helped. And then, I liked it. I enjoyed playing. I liked achieving. I liked achieving with my friends. I also enjoyed, especially when the band was smaller, we all kind of had different parts to play. It was much more like a chamber music situation where you were responsible for the part that you were doing. And if you didn't do it, it wasn't going to be there. So you really feel like you were saving the day by playing your part correctly. And but then on top of that, as the bands get larger, it was also just such a wonderful experience to have a tuba section, to have 3-4 other tuba players next to you, and we're all working together to make this part happen. And chances to conduct, being a student conductor in middle school and high school, and then becoming drum major and a student conductor in the choir as well. And then some compositional opportunities came. The theater department at my high school would tap students to try to sort of make the incidental music, and maybe there'd be an overture, maybe some scene changes and things like that. And so the first a Yamaha workstation came into my life in 9th grade, and I learned how to make original sequences and bringing different sounds in and do some live performance mixed in with the computer sort of playing an accompaniment, mixing the synthesizers with I would have my tuba there as well, and my friend would have a saxophone, and we would all make these just interesting things that go with whatever the play was. And all of that keeps moving forward. At some point I became aware that I wanted to try to be a professional, and I didn't know what kind. I didn't know if I was going to try to be a professional performer on tuba, if I was going to be a composer, if I was going to be a band director. And so I just kind of kept pushing on all those things as much as I had time for, as much as I could combine them into one thing, when it's possible. I started at James Madison University as a music ed major. Had so much fun marching in the Marching Royal Dukes, playing in the JMU Pep Band, all the various ensembles, brass quintet, brass band, and the symphonic bands. So there's just a lot of opportunities there.
Oh, were you there when Robert W. Smith was there?
Yeah, well, he was, I think he was about to make his transition. So I remember him being there. Like, I went to the summer camps. And so he was always there. So like between my sophomore and junior year, I went and was in the summer camp there. And so I remember him writing arrangements for that camp, kind of trying them out on the campers. Well, and then the Marching Royal Dukes for playing them the next, that next season, which was a really exciting thing. As a high school kid looking up to that band, and it's like, we got to play it first, and so that was pretty fun. But I think by the time I got there, he was just on his way out. I remember he went down south somewhere to teach.
Mm-hmm. Troy,
and I think that was
he's at Troy.
And but I don't remember if that was directly where he went then. It was summer of '94. So I'm not sure if he's been there the whole time. But yeah, but he had such an amazing impact on that, just the music makers around Madison. But the Marching Royal Dukes is something that every high school kid in Virginia, we all know about it. We all look up to it as a great destination. And so I was part of that. I wanted to do it as well. And I really enjoyed being there. There's a lot of really positive things. But there was something pulling me, and I transferred to Manhattan School of Music. I went up to study the orchestral performance and chamber music, and my solo performing, and got a chance to start playing in some jazz combos, even some big bands. And so just making that transition from Harrisonburg to Harlem, boy, what a night and day in terms of just a place to live. But it was always the music, and me trying to just see how far I could take things, so I made that jump, and I had a great time in New York. Did the Tanglewood Festival one summer, did Altenburger Music Fest a couple summers, and did the Henry Mancini Institute. So just always a big mix. I also forgot to add that I marched in the 1993 cadets. They were called the Cadets of Bergen County at that time. So just having the drum corps experience, I marched in George Knapp's Spirit of America National Honor Band, did that European tour, was his drum major. Actually had a great time and played baritone in that band. And so just always for me, going back to whenever an opportunity comes up, I want to be able to do it. I want to be able to sing in the choir, and I want to be able to play in the jazz band, and I want to be able to play in the orchestra and the concert band and the marching band, and just always be able to participate, because I put the time in to make myself, viable. It may not necessarily be at the top of everything, but always able to contribute positively and put my focus in at a certain thing. I can't be all things all the time, but I can focus on being composer at certain times of the year, and I can focus on being conductor, and I can focus on being a tuba player. And so then the more I did a variety of things, the easier it was for me to see how connected everything was. And the skills that I was learning in an orchestration class translating to pep band. So, they sat me down. I was a composition minor, both at JMU and at Manhattan. And so I had to take all the orchestration classes and the composition classes and, present at form and things like that. So for instance, when the harpist showed up, I had experience writing for harp. I wasn't afraid to start putting notes on the page and make it work for the instrument. I had experience writing for a string section and knew, the parameters of the instrument and what was going to work and what wasn't going to work. And so it just didn't seem to, like, by having that, like I said, that varied experience, it's never in a situation where I wouldn't know how to connect something that, at least that I've been a part of, to what we're doing. But then on the outside of that, since I recognize that there are lots of, false walls between things, and of course you can combine these things, whenever something shows up that even if I don't know what I'm going to do with it, I still am convinced that just because I don't know right now standing here doesn't mean I can't figure it out. Or there's somebody else that knows how to do it or something like that. And so that's all that has continued to come together. I still enjoy jumping in, putting my tuxedo on from time to time and, getting to play some of the orchestral rep or, having a great time building a chamber music program at Mason right now. So the brass quintets are really flourishing right now. But in the end, it's all just a big spectrum of opportunity, and just what are we working on right now? What are we working on for this hour? What are we working on tomorrow? And is there a way to connect them and make them even more fun? And so all those, divergent paths were really just one path. And here I am and continuing to push on it.
Man, you are so busy. You're doing so many things. It's really remarkable. So I have my final 6 questions that I ask everybody. Do you still have time for that?
All right. Yeah,
we should get going because you sound like you have things to do. Man, that's a remarkable
orchestra rehearsal at 2:30 today. Actually,
man, you have an incredible thing going there, and you're doing so many amazing things. It's really great to talk to you. So I appreciate it. Thanks for so much for including me in this, for sure. Oh, absolutely. I'm excited to announce the Everything Band podcast has joined forces with several other music education-related podcasts to form the Music Teacher Development Podcast Network. The Muted Network provides support in the form of audio on-demand programming designed by and for music educators. You can find more information about our network at mutedpodcasts.com. So, Mike, where do you draw the line between healthy and unhealthy competition in music?
There's never a reason to tear someone else down. The most, we have our two different ways that we're performing. Whenever we're at a game at a neutral site and the other band is there, I have no interest in booing the other group or just being nasty at all. We have, those are our colleagues over there. We're going to get outside of this basketball game, and it's very likely that some of us are going to be on the same gigs in another setting. What's good for one band is good for every band, and showing support for performers. It's just such a better way to go. We've been able to make friends with everybody everywhere we go by being supportive of their performing. So we're supposed to be rivals across the basketball court, but that, maybe that can be okay while we're cheering, but while we're performing, I'm not interested in it. And that even comes when we put together they wanted us to do a battle of the bands at the conference championship. And I was not interested in that at all. What I wanted to do was a collaborative performance. And it elevated everyone so much. If you want to ever get on YouTube and look up the CAA Breakfast with the Bands is what we called it. So CAA Breakfast with the Bands, you can see the collaborative performances that went there. And it just proved that competition is always collaboration. Like, competition is a subset of collaboration, and the true thing that we're doing is collaborating. and then I could take another way to answer that and say, we have our competitive ensembles, and then sometimes we have within our ensembles if people are challenging for seats, or we're all auditioning to try to win a specific seat at a job or something like that. There's a line where we can pass where we're still working so hard just to win, and we've lost sight of all kinds of ways of taking care of our own personal well-being, physically, emotionally, taking care of our relationships with each other. Whenever we get laser focused on a goal where we would sacrifice our health, sacrifice our relationships, what we have done is we've ignored the fact that the rest of the universe exists, and there's an abundance of opportunities, and there's abundance of resources, and we just have to remember that this one opportunity, although it could be important to us and it could be something we desire, there's more opportunity that we're not aware of that's everywhere around us, that we don't need to put so much into this one thing that we sacrifice something that we connect, that our relationships, our personal health. Well, so that's where I draw the line. There's always way too many people who could do a specific job. And I'd rather at some point, of course I want to be the one that gets the chance to, play on a certain stage or play on a certain gig, but I'm not going to go so far after it that I would hurt myself or hurt someone around me. And then a lot of times somebody else can have a great time doing that gig, and the other 100 of us that didn't get the gig, we can put our own gig together and have fun doing that. So there's just too many options to ever worry about the specific outcome of one thing.
Yeah, that's really great. And you kind of touched a little bit on my next question, which is how do you manage to find work-life balance with everything that you do?
I am blessed to be able to live close to work, so I can, the blessing of being able to run home and lay down for half an hour after teaching class when there's a basketball game that night. Just like making sure that I have enough time to, like I said, it's a blessing. I don't spend a ton of time commuting, because I went out of my way to figure out how to stay close to work. I enjoy my social activities. Sometimes it's around sports, or my own exercising. I guess that's another part right there. I've just really found the value in regular exercise. Keeps my body from falling apart, being in pain, but also just keeps my energy and my will moving in the direction that I want it to. Eating the right way, it's amazing how derailed I can get if I eat too much or don't eat enough or eat the wrong things, and how easy it is to find healthy food. And then, disengaging sometimes, like there's times of the year where I just can't keep going after the same problem, and I need to back off. I need to take a trip once a year, or just get out of the area code. We always keep saying, get out of the zip code, get out of the area code, just so that my brain can think about anything else. The meditative properties of performing, especially just my own personal practice, turning the tuba into an ohm or didgeridoo, or working on my long tones and things like that, and how much just dealing with those vibrations and losing myself in that. I also will pick up a new instrument every couple of years, something that I've never played before. Back when we were talking about being a beginner and being really honest about hand placement and posture, and just all the things that you would want to pass on to a beginner. Make sure I give that to myself. So the most recent thing is I've been spending some time trying to learn banjo. And so that's been a really fun, great challenge. It's so different from tuba playing, but then also so connected to tuba playing. Just thinking about some American folk music where the banjo and the tuba are joined at the hip. So it's kind of fun to get on the other side of that and see that from the other side. So yeah, I bounce around a bunch of things. Keeping current with your relationships, people that you care about. Make sure you at least figure out how to talk, how to shoot a message, how to get together, how to have a meal. And then, with all of that, all those things I've said, what has revealed itself to me is if I do my best to try to schedule those things, and just, even if I'm not right when I make the schedule, I don't have to, adamantly stick to something I've scheduled. But if I remember to plan to rest, and remember to plan to exercise, and remember to plan to practice, put those things on a time schedule where I know what time I'm going to be trying to do it. And then that time management piece, helps reveal things that you want to do, but it's not convenient to do, or at least you don't think it's convenient to do because you haven't thought about how to make it convenient. The time management kind of ties it all together for me.
So, Mike, this is my big question. And what are the challenges that you see facing music or music education? And do you have any thoughts about how we can best meet those challenges?
One of the things that's the most disappointing to me about the way we approach music education, I'm not saying everyone does this, but this definitely shows its head. There's different goals in terms of what different community leaders can do in terms of trying to either put so much energy into one thing that it kind of doesn't leave room for other people to do the things that they're interested in. It's sort of a my way or the highway approach to community music. And it can really leave some people out. And when you get left out for reasons that are just unnecessary, that's disappointing to me. One of the ways that I've seen that happen, just kind of around here in this area, it's a shame to me when the student body has rich diversity of ethnicity, languages spoken, nationalities, and then I go into the music room and I don't see that same diversity in the music room. I just can't see that the amount of resources that go into a healthy band program, orchestra program, choir program, if they're not finding ways to serve more types of folks, that means that community is getting out of balance, in my opinion. And I think it's a shame when I see that happen. And there are plenty of different ways to find, as I do in the Green Machine, like I said, I want a huge audience. I want to try to everyone to see something that's their favorite thing. It's not difficult to get outside of the sort of status quo of the canon of repertoire or performance style and incorporate other things. It's just not difficult to do. Obviously, it takes genuine curiosity about things in order to make it really come off properly. But if that needle can get moved, you'd be surprised how many other walls come down, not just in who's performing, but how we relating to each other in general. So that's sort of like my main thing that I think that I would say. But then I would go past that and say, if programs are having trouble with resources, with finances, with even just like a level of priority within their community that allows for the dignity that the program deserves, some of that has to do with, it's like we as the leaders are supposed to figure out how to bridge those gaps. A lot of times people who haven't had an arts experience just don't understand. And if they did understand, they would be more excited about it. It's just outside of their familiarity. So they just don't know what we're talking about when we say, we should have a choir and people will love to come and sing in this choir. If they've never been in a choir or have never seen a choir before or never really paid attention, it's going to be really hard for them to understand why. And if they've, I always try to find ways to lure the people so that they participate some kind of way and get to feel the, just the energetic bonds between people when we're all just trying to accomplish something. And one of the things I'm going to do for Mason, there's so many people in our community who have never marched before, and how if I can find a way to lure a bunch of people to the field who may never be ever in a marching band, but just to have their first marching rehearsal, just to learn how to march, and the joy of us all accomplishing moving this mob of people from this side of the field to the other side of the field, and how just how connected and accomplished we can feel just from doing that. And then maybe figure out how to apply that to different kinds of things, singing and dancing and other types of work. So it's like figuring out how to make the activity so obviously relevant to everybody so that it doesn't seem like a thing that only artists do and somehow you're either an artist or you're not. I always talk about with people with music, I don't even try to ask them if they're a musician. What I say to them is, what kind of musician are you? Like, how is music in your life? So that they will think about it kind of in a different way. I've already included them, and maybe they have never given thought, well, I have this great record collection, and that's enormous. Okay, so you're like an archivist and an audiophile. Like, you enjoy to listen and you enjoy collecting. That's amazing, and so now they're part of the club, and they already were. They just never thought of themselves that way. So that's important for me to do, and I hope that we can all kind of get good at that, just kind of pointing out to everyone that everyone has music in their life some kind of way. And so they're already in the club, and maybe once we establish that, figure out how to meet them where they are and, bring them closer to where we are. So I think anytime we're, our budget's on the chopping block or our position's on the chopping block, obviously we have to advocate for ourselves, and then figuring out the ways to do that, that draw people in. And of course they'll stand up for what we're doing if they could just understand it a little better. And that's up to us to translate for them.
Just another example of your inclusivity and community. I mean, this is sort of the theme of the conversation so far.
It's a chance for me to be proud of who I am. And I love people, and I love getting to meet new people, and I love my long-standing friendships and connections. So it's I'm proud to be that.
So Mike, two more questions. And the first one is, what advice would you give your younger self? Maybe if you were looking at yourself at your high school graduation at 18, what would you say to yourself?
I felt so indestructible then, and had no idea about some of the realities of challenges of we on our teams, all the sports teams I ever played on, and all the bands I was in, and the drum corps and all that. There was always people around us encouraging us to look out for each other and kind of be proactive in the care and tending of everyone around us. And if we all did that, then it would come back to you as well. And when I stepped out of high school, I got over many different examples, a real taste of how, just because I was taught that way, there are many, many people who were not taught that way. And it doesn't take a whole lot of somebody who's not thinking that way to really cause problems for me, for anyone, for themselves also. And I would probably say something along the lines of things that I say to myself now. Try to remember that you were blessed with some very caring teachers, parents, family members who gave you some really, really great tools to be around people and to get what you need as an individual. And just try to remember that not everyone had that blessing. So remember that your values will be in conflict with people sometimes, and that doesn't mean you have to lose who you are or abandon the things that have been taught to you that are going to work out in your favor over time. And then just try to be resilient as those things play out, because we will get through those difficult times where there's those misunderstandings and sort of misfirings, and over the long haul, you are on the right path.
If you had a choice, what would be the final work for wind ensemble or band, or maybe anything that you'd conduct?
Oh boy, I'm going to give you a different answer than you probably get.
That's okay.
I have had so much joy getting improvisers together and working on, in real time, creating a one-of-a-kind, never going to happen again thing. And so for me, it would be about getting those improvisers together, people of varying, ability, and some of the world-class improvisers, and some people sitting there never thought they would ever improvise in their life. And there are all kinds of ways to lead that ensemble, and just bathe in it, and apply all the things that we have learned in every history class, every piece we've ever played, every theory class, and have it all come together in that moment. Your cultural life emerges, your friendships definitely shine. And so it would be a situation like that where we would get together, This Is Your Life, past, present, and we would just make something happen in that moment that had never existed before, may never exist again. And then my hope would be that it would get captured, recorded, video, audio, so that it could be shared. The example of it could be shared of, what was possible when we just sort of allow ourselves to explore that space.
Community again, Mike, to the very end.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
So this episode is likely to live on the internet for years. And so it's a little bit difficult to sort of pin down things that are coming up that you'd like to share or promote. But is there anything that you would like to talk about?
I've been really enjoying building up the program at Mason. And we're at a place now where we have proven we've proven our salt. We've made a big impact on the scene of the sort of sports entertainment within college sports, particularly basketball, but also some, we do our soccer games and volleyball and other things. And then we've also made a splash in the Winter Guard International stage with our drum line and our color guard. I'm so looking forward to seeing this thing that's happening, that's emerged, get to the next level. And I'm trying to work to bring all the high schools to campus so we can have, competitions on campus and summer camps and things like that. And I'm hoping, I from time to time, I'll do an interview or I'll write a list down of some goals. So I guess the main thing I'll say is I can't wait to stumble upon this years and years and years from now and hear myself talking about some of the dreams I have for the program at Mason and be able to listen and say, yep, we already did that. We did that. That came true. That happened. And I hope everyone comes and becomes part of it some kind of way. Check us out on the internet. Come to Fairfax and come to a game. Come to a tournament when you see we're in your town. Check out our competitive ensembles that are traveling around to do the competitions. Reach out to us. We love to share knowledge. We love to share our charts when we can. And let's just keep working on this whole thing together.
So, Mike, how can people get in touch with you?
Pretty easy to find me on the internet. You can look up the George Mason Green Machine. Our website is greenmachine.gmu.edu. You can also find us on Facebook, Doc Nix and the Green Machine. You can also look up the George Mason University and the School of Music, music.gmu.edu. And you can, very easy to find an email, very easy to connect, on social media. And we'll see you out there, and let's keep this conversation going.
Mike, thanks so much for your time. This is a terrific interview.
Oh, thank you. This has been a joy, and I'm really happy to meet you and become part of what you're working on in this project.